Good morning, folks. Just wanted to give you an update. We are running just a few minutes behind schedule, so bear with us, and we'll start as soon as we can. Thank you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. Woohoo! We're almost through the week. I see that guy in the back's jumping up and down. He's excited too. We'd like to say thank you to Commissioner Anderson, District 5. Who in here is a District 5 fan? Anybody? Yeah, awesome. So we're really appreciative that he's helping host this event with you all today. So you can get to know the development services team a bit more, learn more about the SwiftGov partnership, and a bit about the building permit review process for single family homes. So my name is Sabrina Dugan. I am a managing partner at SwiftGov. And, before we kick off, I'll pass the mic to Commissioner Anderson for a few words. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Sabrina. Welcome everybody to this workshop. Uh, we're running late this morning because of me. Have you ever had one of those weeks where you think it's going to be an easy week It's not a board meeting that week. You don't have a lot of meetings with staff that week, and you think, this is a week I catch my breath. It didn't turn out that way. Every day has been my hair on fire. Uh, and this morning, I got up, as Mary can attest to. I'm usually here 15 to 10 to 5 minutes before a meeting starts. Well, I couldn't find my keys this morning. Uh, so, like usual, I panicked, went in, got water on my hair to put it out, and I called Sabrina, and they came and picked me up because I live 2 minutes away. So, thank you, Sabrina, Jeremy, appreciate it. We're here to discuss AI and planning. And I'm going to be honest, what I know about AI is what I saw in science fiction in the early 60s, that AI is going to take over the world. And it's scary for my age. It really is. But AI is coming. And I predict within 5 years that the state of Florida will pass a law that every county, every municipality has AI in their government. We have the very pleasure of having Sabrina here with us today. When you're talking about a big brain person, that's her. And she doesn't lord it over. She's one of the most humble people I've ever met in my life. And but she's super smart. She's here to tell you about AI for planning. If you want AI answers, please don't ask me the question. Ask her. She's this is going to be good for county government, city government, and state government. It's already being implemented all over this country. And I can't think of a better company than Swift to implement our AI and planning. So here's Sabrina.
All right, and thank you, Commissioner Anderson, again for supporting these initiatives with the county, and for just a brief overview. There's been a big thing about having more transparent communication with the community to get thoughts and feedback. We are getting ready to do a few changes, such as a land development code rewrite. In order to make these changes, you need input. Where do you see growth going? How can we protect and conserve lands, and make sure it's appropriate? Obviously, the term appropriate needs to be clearly defined, and the only way to do that is with you all. So, we're really appreciative that you guys are here to participate and give some thoughts and feedback. And for today's agenda, we'll do mini surveys. Everyone gets super excited about the surveys. They are anonymous. We just ask, please play nice, play nice enough, or else we will have to stop doing live surveys. So we will appreciate that a lot if you guys could participate. We're going to discuss why the building permit review process exists. We'll discuss the staff workflow today as well. And to do that, you guys have some great knowledge experts at Walton County. You have Stephen Schoen, your Director of Development Services. His main initiative, Stephen Schoen, he's only been in his office, in his position. I mean, he's been in his office for years. Gosh, he's been there for years. I'm very sure that most of you have had some type of interaction with him. He's a pretty nice guy for the most part, for like good days, but he's a really nice guy who cares about the county. And that's one thing that it's really hard for government to find. So he is a special one, and you guys need to make sure that you have good communication with him. He cares and he wants to be here. That's why we're doing 10 of these throughout the next week and a half. So with his direction, we are trying to make things a bit more transparent with our standardized operating procedures. And then also you have Kelly Schultz, Deputy Director of Development Services. She's just the biggest social butterfly. It's like night and day. I'm kidding. But it's so fun. Like they're the perfect little combo. And we also have Donnie Sway, your building permit review manager. She's just always on top of everything. Even you might be like, "Hey, Donnie, no, you don't have to," and she's just there, really making sure she's front and center to try to support you guys. So don't ever hesitate to reach out to any of them. With that, I'll give it to Stephen real quick just to do a brief hello and why we're here. So yes, to Stephen Schoen.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here. A little context for me. I'm not feeling great this morning, so I'm not really firing on all cylinders. So bear with me as I try to stumble through the next couple minutes here. But let me start by telling y'all how much I appreciate you taking the time to come here. What we're doing or attempting to do is very important, um, extremely important for this county, for its future, for our current built environment, for the environment. Um, you know, uh, Today is meant to be primarily two twofold twofold objectives. Year one, to introduce you to our new sort of BPR review process, to go through some of the forms and the importance of how we've attempted to be more efficient and consistent in that process in our review procedures. Second, to get some initial sort of feedback from you all in the land development code, your experiences with it, your experiences with the department, good, bad, or indifferent. Please let us know um, what your experience has been and your experience elsewhere, and how we can improve that for you. Um, I want to cover one more brief piece of information before I turn it over. But previously, there's been some confusion with members of the public between SwiftGov and EnterGov, right? So SwiftGov is here, and they're behind the scenes helping us improve our processes and procedures. They're going to help us improve our land development code, um, and a myriad of other things. EnterGov is our project management, our review software that you all would submit applications to in order for a review to start. There have been issues with the EnterGov system. We are attempting to rectify those through separate processes currently. Um, SwiftGov has offered to assist in some of those areas as well, which is fantastic. They're great partners to have, and we just really appreciate the efforts they've shown. We appreciate the Board of County Commissioners for allowing us to move forward in this direction, and we appreciate all of you again for taking the time to be here. So thank you, and here's Kelly Schultz.
Good morning, everybody. So, Stephen, thank you for that. He took some of my thunder, man. So, this is the fifth one of these workshops that we've done, or roundtables, as we're calling them. And I think that we've evolved because the first one was a little we weren't really sure exactly, at least from our side, how they were going to go. And we've taken some feedback, and we're adding a little bit more information, as Stephen explained, how all this is going to work. The, the last component that I think we should add is that Sabrina's going to do a quick walkthrough on our publicly accessible GIS, which is a mapping system. And somebody asked me at one of the roundtables, like, why are y'all doing that? It seems like you're so segmented. Stephen explained how, the reasons that we're talking about SwiftGov and while we're talking about the land development code updates. But the reason that the GIS portion is thrown in is so that you can service yourself, especially if we're not available at the time. If you're doing your work at 3 o'clock in the morning, as our Donnie's does, or if it's a weekend or a holiday, and you're wanting to submit an application and you want it to be as complete as it can be, and you're like, okay, which forms do I need to submit? You go to GIS, you put in your parcel number or address, or you just scroll around so you find your property, and then you can turn on all these different layers to determine which of the forms that I'm about to talk about you need to submit as part of your BPR process. And does everybody know what I mean when I say BPR? Yeah, I think we have seasoned folks here. I don't think we have a couple of sessions. We've had some citizens who were just interested in learning more about what's going on. So we'll throw these acronyms out, and they didn't really know what that meant. And uh, so, and you'll hear us use the word permit sometimes. We interchange it with, what we do on our side, the planning side versus what the building department does. We say permit sometimes, but we're issuing an approval that then goes to the building department for the construction permit. So if I start confusing you by saying those things, don't hesitate to raise your hand. Small groups are great. We can be intimate and talk about different things. Feel free to interrupt me, and we'll get started. So one of the things that is often a point of confusion for our citizens, whether it be our you know longtime citizen that's doing their first project, maybe putting an addition on their home or bringing a shed onto their property, versus and then also our permit runners, it gets confusing until they get very seasoned on what forms they need to fill out, what forms are available. So I'm going to go through those. I'll try to go through them quickly, but I'm happy to add more detail if anybody has questions or gets confused on them. But I want to throw out, too, the fact that part of what our SwiftGov partners are doing for us is they're helping us create a document that once it's finished will be uploaded to our web page. And the document, I'm kind of calling it like a one-stop shop for information, because I know one of the common complaints that I've heard is, where do I find these forms? How do I know what I'm supposed to submit? So Sabrina and her staff, they've created this slick document. It's got basically like a little flow chart on it. It's got all the forms that we're going to talk about, links to the forms. It's got all of the requirements for a BPR, and it backs it up with the code, with what section of the code causes us to ask for these things. And then it also tells you, okay, if it's not complete, this is what happens. If there's wrong information, this is what happens. So it gives you a better idea. It helps you learn what we're doing while we're doing it. So Sabrina's going to stop me any second now. So the first form I'm going to talk about is the application form. It's very basic. You check what you're doing generally, like, am I building a new house? Am I doing a accessory dwelling unit? Am I putting in a shed? And then it asks for some very basic information about your property. We also have the compliance affidavit, which is a notarized document where you're saying pretty much everything that I've provided to the county is the truth and accurate to the best of my knowledge. There, I told you. How rude.
We love Kelly, but we also love surveys. So real quick, before we dive in too much, let's go ahead and do a quick survey, just so we can get to know you guys a little bit. I do see some familiar faces here, where I have maybe met you in person, or like at a POCC meeting, just some of our frequent flyers, or but also some residents I'm pretty sure I've ran into a few times. But would love for you guys to participate in an awesome survey. We do check phones. We've checked every phone for every session we've done. So if we don't see you scanning it, we will ask you to scan it, especially Ron, the PIO. He's always eager for participation. No, we don't check phones, but if you could scan and participate, it's a little awkward if you don't, just because I'm still stuck up here trying to talk to you guys through the survey. So even if you don't scan it, we do have people online that hopefully might or will. Jeremy's loves this survey. He talks to his friends about it. That's what we talk about at dinner, and it's been really a good one. So if you guys could participate, you will see live responses. Sometimes we have had some speedy people that just go full pedal to the metal, keep going forward, and have some questions that are coming up. You're not on the same screen as us. That's completely fine, but we will go through this together just so you can see the other responses that are populating. That's pretty helpful for you guys to know, especially those online. So the first question, do you know your current zoning district? And, Stephen, he said this morning, he said he's doing okay today, but, he's not doing okay. He's doing amazing. We're all doing amazing and happy to be here. It's, a great Thursday. Right now, we have 86% of the participants know their current zoning district, but we have 14% it does not, which is completely fine if you don't. We do hope by the end of today's session you will, and we'll be able to find that information. Do you believe your current zoning district is accurate for your property or area? 67% are saying yes, and 17% are saying no. 17% are saying I'm not sure. All right, and for those of you just now joining, feel free to scan the QR code with your phone. If you use your camera to scan the QR code, you will see a link pop up, and the link will take you to this live survey. Have you ever had to look up or use the Walton County Land Development Code? 50% of you in here, 57% of you have more than 10 times. Wow, that's, you guys, we're going to ask you guys for the feedback. You guys know what you're doing. And even the 13% that never have not needed it, we would love to hear why, and that's totally fine if you haven't needed it, but would it be more useful if we add more things in it or take things away? Just let us know your thoughts. All right, how user-friendly is the current land development code? Right now, 43% is leading, saying neutral. 50% is now neutral. 13%, I have not used it. 33%, somewhat user-friendly. When using the land development code, what is the hardest part? Right now, we have, and I'm going to read some of these options just because the TV screen, it's like a little smaller, the text. So the first option is finding the section I need. Second option is understanding the language. Third option is knowing which rules apply to my property. Fourth option is understanding zoning and the future land use together. And I believe for this one, you do have the option to select more than one. Understanding setbacks or dimensional standards, understanding environmental or floodplain requirements, knowing what documents and approvals are required, or understanding the review process. Do you have any specific issues, concerns, or conflicts with the land development code? All right, so we are receiving a few comments. We have a no, we have another no, we have two ambiguous, that's completely fair. Language is unclear, too easy to manipulate. We have protecting wetlands, protecting conservation areas, and water quality, protecting wildlife. Oh, bless you. I'm a tree hugger. My friends call me the tree hugger. So that's awesome. Okay, understanding why deviations from the code are granted. That's a very good point. And hopefully we'll be able to cover some of these things today. And if we can't, we can definitely dig into them a bit more. What would you most like to change about the land development code? Make it easier to search, use clearer language, add more examples or diagrams, improve organization, make property-specific rules easier to find, clarify single-family home requirements, clarify environmental requirements, make review requirements more predictable. We have only a few more questions for this survey, but we do have two more by the end of today. So it's going to be really fun. All right, which LDC topics need the most clarification? So far in the survey, we've had some frequent flyers that are very familiar with the land development code. Please feel free to let us know which topics need the most clarification. I'll hold here for a few seconds so that way we can get some responses. This one is an optional, if you don't want to answer this one, you don't have to, but it is an open, it's open for suggestion. So you can write in text or a little blurb on your All right. Looks like no clarification is needed. No, I'm kidding. We saw the ones earlier. It's all good. We're good. We'll keep track of it. But how confident are you that you know where to find accurate zoning or LDC information for your property? All right, 50% and very confident, 25% somewhat confident, 25% not confident at all. By the end of today, we hope you're very, very confident in the extremely confident category. All right. What is one thing that would make zoning or LDC information easier for you to understand? You know, for this one, we've for the previous sessions, we've had suggestions such as diagrams or charts or, you know, actual visuals to show what we're trying to protect or conserve. You know, that way there's clear expectations. So those are some of the things that we've seen in the other sessions this week. So far, we have had more than 61 participants total in person the past few days, so it's been really exciting, and it's good that District 5 has a pretty nice turnout as well. All right, and I'm going to hand it back to Kelly.
Okay, so I know forms are not nearly as exciting as survey, and we do appreciate Sabrina. She's great energy here. Um, so, talking about appreciating, we appreciate Mary King from admin coming to join us. We appreciate our partners from South Walton Fire. We've got our fire marshal, is that right? Sammy Sanchez, and a new, did I hear you say chief? Jason Thayer, is that right? Appreciate Mr. Curry for coming out. Yes, and we appreciate our admin partners too, because without them, we could not be having this. All of these are live streamed. They're all recorded. So if there's, you know, something that you thought, "Oh, what did they say?" You can always go to YouTube and find these and listen to them. Or if you want to see what we did at any of the other sessions, it's all basically the same information. Hopefully, we're getting a little bit better with how we're presenting it. But you know, you can always tell us if we can do something better. We like the feedback. So going back to the exciting world of forms, the next one I'm going to briefly cover is the Master Stormwater Plan form, the letter. This is only applicable if you are in a development that has a Master Stormwater community. And I know that we've got some folks here, I'm seeing faces I know that are south of the bay, and a lot of those developments are Master Stormwater Plan communities, unless they're really old developments. Once you start getting over, you know, north of the bay, there's fewer, but as new development comes in, a lot of those do have the master stormwater plan communities. And this form is basically your engineer saying, this is how much impervious surface you can have. And it gets into engineering things that are way out of my pay grade with coefficients and so on and so forth. And then this is what's proposed. And the goal of this is just to make sure that what you're doing on your property is in compliance with your master stormwater plan, so that you're not, you know, you're not flooding, you're not causing your neighbors to flood out. And some people ask, well, what happens if I need to build more than the master stormwater plan allowed? You can do extra stormwater features on your property, so that you know, it's kind of the best of both worlds. You get to build more impervious area on your lot, and then you also provide the additional stormwater storage, so that everybody's safe and hopefully not flooding. The next one is the affidavit for accessory dwelling units. You'll hear us call them ADUs. That's some folks call mother-in-law apartments. It's basically a separate dwelling on your property. Every lot in Walton County is allowed to have an ADU, unless, of course, you have some environmental constraints, or you can't meet the setbacks or so on. But it allows you to build up to 800 square feet of heated and cooled space, unless you have a small home, and then you have to reduce that 800 down to whatever size would be less than, or it can't be more than 75% of the size of your home. So if you have, a 1,000 square foot house, you're not going to be able to hit that full 800 square feet. You're going to be limited to 750 square feet of heated and cooled space. If you've done one of these forms in the past and you do another one now or going forward, you'll see that it is a little bit different. There used to be the prohibition for these ADUs to be used for short-term vacation rentals. And our Board of County Commissioners has changed that rule, so now they can be rented as short-term vacation rentals. Of course, then there's a whole nother process that we'll talk about on another day for that, but they can be short-term vacation rentals now. We have an agricultural limited review application, and what this form does is if you have gotten an agricultural designation through the property appraiser's office, whole nother process, but if you get that designation and you complete this form, then there are fees that we can waive as far as your BPR application. We can waive your application fee of $100. We can waive your land clearing fee of $25. Now, and this would be for like a barn or workshop, I guess, anything that's agricultural in nature. But if you decide you want to have electricity to that building, then we will have to charge you the $25 temporary power pole fee. And then this form carries over to the building department with those same rules. Applications are waived and for the basic building permit, but if you get into the trades, if you will, then those fees are going to apply. Combination of 2 or more parcels of land. So let's say that you are in a subdivision and you own 2 or 3 parcels, or if you are on, not in an actual recorded subdivision and you own 2 or 3 parcels, and they're lots of record, meaning they were created by deed and recorded with the clerk's office prior to November 7th of 1996, then you can build over your property lands. So we typically see it, if you have 2 or more parcels, somebody will want to center those within their 2 parcels. We would have to make them move it onto one or the other to meet typically the side yard setbacks of typically 7.5 feet. But if you complete this affidavit that is a recorded document, it's notarized and recorded, then we can say, okay, you don't have to meet that side setback, and we'll treat your 2 parcels as one. Now, you still have 2 parcels. So what happens if you decide I want to sell one? This document says you can't do that unless you take whatever doesn't meet the code for as far as setbacks goes, and you fix it. Usually with a house, that's not really an option. but if you did, if your house met the setbacks, and say you had your accessory dwelling or your shed on the other parcel, then we just have to make sure that they met the setbacks for you to sell 1 or more of those lots if you own 2 or 3. Wildlife lighting. So if you are not in a wildlife conservation zone, this form would not apply to your project. But if you are, again, you can find that with GIS, then you have to complete and provide us with the affidavit that states you meet all the requirements for turtle lighting. We do this form in conjunction with our fish and wildlife partners. And again, it's to make sure that our turtle habitats are protected from light. Flood zone. If you are in a V zone, a velocity zone, from our flood maps through the National Flood Insurance Program, there is a certification that you have to provide. If you're not in a V zone, you don't have to worry about this form. If you are in a special hazard flood zone and let's say that you build a garage and on the 2nd floor you build an accessory dwelling unit. This form basically certifies that you understand that you cannot convert that first floor into living space unless you comply with the flood zone requirements. It's called a non-conversion agreement. We also have our, it's a stormwater submittal finished floor elevation exemption. So all of our structures, there's so many flood zone requirements, but if you are not in a flood zone, we say that your structure has to be 1 foot above the crown of the road. If you are on a piece of property that's large, and let's say that you have a 45-acre parcel, and you're not going to set it right up next to the road. You're going to put it kind of out in the center. Then and you're not going to be 1 foot above the crown of the road. That's okay. You complete this document, and and we can basically give you a waiver from that 1 foot above the crown of the road requirement. White sands application. If you're not in a white sand zone, this doesn't apply to you. If you are, and it does, this is essentially saying, well, you complete the application, you bring us a sample of the sand from the provider that you're getting the sand from. It is sent off to a laboratory, and we confirm that it meets the requirements for the sand to protect the integrity of our beautiful white beaches. And there are certain colors that they look for, grain size, that sort of thing. And once they can determine that it does meet all those, then we approve your sand, and you can bring it in. Let's see here. Beach mice. How many knew that there's a protected mouse that lives on the beach? I did not until I started working here. So yeah, there's 2 tiers, tier 1 and tier 2. Just like with the others, if you're not in one of the tiers for beach mice, then you don't have to worry about this form. If you are, then you do. And this is another one that's in conjunction with our Fish and Wildlife partners. A form that's relatively new, I think, Kimberly, you mentioned this one. Some people call it the culvert form, driveway form. This is one that goes with every single BPR application, and it goes to Public Works. Our staff doesn't approve this one. We're the intake folks, and then send it over to them, and then they approve it, making sure that, if you need a culvert, if they approve the width of the driveway, the number of connection points, so on and so forth. And there are some diagrams with that document that are available to the public if they have questions about it. Last but not least, we have the South Walton Mosquito District requirements. This isn't necessarily a form that you fill out. It's more of just an informational form. While we do have a North Walton Mosquito Control District, the South District is really active with our development reviews because they do have the mosquito control ditches trying to curtail some of the issues with mosquitoes. But if you are adjacent to a ditch, then there's certain requirements that they want you to follow. And the good folks over there, if the requirements don't make sense, they're a phone call away, and they are always there to help. So with that, does anybody have any questions about anything that I've gone over? I think I put them to sleep, Sabrina. Hey, Bob. Oh, yes. Good. So these, as I mentioned before, these are recorded. And what we have noticed is even if you speak loud, if you don't have a microphone, then it doesn't pick up on the recording, and we want everybody's voice to be heard. So,
You want my name?
Bob.
Okay. On the wildlife conservation zone for the lighting, I live on the beach, and I very rarely ever see any cars or code enforcement vehicles on the beach in night. So how do they know whether the lighting on the houses on the beach are compliant?
Well, I'm sure you know, been around Walton County for a minute. Is our code enforcement is not proactive. So if there was a complaint, if somebody saw lighting and they thought it was a suspect, then they would report it to code. Now, what I don't know, and Donise deals with this on a more regular basis and may be able to fill in. What I don't know is if our code enforcement has the equipment needed to check the lumens and determine if something is actually a violation, or if we contact Fish and Wildlife and they do it.
Yes. Typically, whenever there is something that is suspect, it is called in, and then code enforcement works with the partners with the state, and then the state usually sends someone out. If it is under construction,
Then they have the affidavit. They're having to provide us the fixtures and the lumens and all the appropriate data that's been pre-approved. But if there is complaints, there's a coordinated effort to go out and investigate.
Do you have a spectral emission
Yeah,
requirement?
depending on which fixtures that they're going to use, they have to be approved through the state, and the Fish and Wildlife have that. If you link on our planning webpage, there is turtle lighting, and it goes through all of what, and links to the state documents of what it is.
Okay, you know what I mean when I say spectral emission?
Yes,
Okay.
line of sight from the beach.
No. I mean the color.
Oh, yes. Yeah, the red and orange.
What about the yellow?
Those are, the variations of it. Those limits are within what those fixtures are approved for, what lenses, what color, what direction. That's all laid out in that state program as well.
And Donnie, so for the state program, what's the state program called?
They're a special program just specifically for wildlife lighting.
While she's pulling that up, you feel free to continue, Bob.
Oh, I
Yeah.
have another question, I guess.
Okay. Yes.
Very basic. I'm kind of confused because I know at least I was always led to believe we don't have zoning in Walton County.
Zoning?
Since when? We never called it zoning. We called it something else.
Years ago. I think it was 17, 18. We changed it to zoning.
Okay.
So, Bob, what you're talking about are the future land use designations. And we still have those. Those are, so we have our.
Well, but I mean, are they going to be called zones?
Yes.
Or they're zoned for this
Yes.
kind of land use? Is that what we're going to?
Yes.
Is that how we're going to say it? Because every
that's the
place I
current
ever
definition.
came from, that's the way it
Yes.
was done. But
We still have the comp plan and the associated map, which is the future land use map. But then, and those categories are, they should be more broad in nature. And then we have the land development code. That's the more specific standards to implement the comp plan. And then it has its accompanying map, which is the zoning map. And so, like, you may have, like a residential future land use category, and then you have multiple zoning districts for residential, that accompany the former future land use. I mean, we still have the future land use map, but it used to just be that as far as mapping goes. So
Okay.
and Sabrina will show you when you get onto the interactive GIS, you have your future land use map, and then you actually have the zoning map as well.
Does land use and zoning correlate?
They,
I mean,
The zoning-
can you say this area is zoned for this land use? Is that kind of an accurate way to say things? Or
sometimes they don't.
one zone residential, zoned industrial, light
Right.
industrial, heavy
And-
industrial?
And it does get very confusing. So, and I don't know exactly if where I'm going is exactly what you're asking, but I can't tell you how many people will call us and say, "Oh, well, the land use of my property is commercial," because they go to the property appraiser's website and they look at what it says the land use is. The property appraiser's information is how it's taxed. So you have to go to the zoning map to see what your zoning is. And then even that might not be in line with exactly how the property is used. So, future land use is a designation on a map, and then the zoning is more specific, but you can't use what the property appraiser shows as far as how the zoning district works.
Okay. Sounds confusing to me.
It is confusing. It is confusing.
Sounds like something that needs to be worked on.
Well, it's is specific to their operations and statutorily mandated, right? So our zoning districts which are directly related to our future land use map designations, are something separate than what the tax collector, property appraiser uses in their efforts, if that helps clear up that at all. But if you can ask your question again, if we haven't approached it correctly here, if you could maybe explain more what you're after.
I was just, to me, it was a very simple question. Do we have zoning in this county?
We do have zoning in
Yes.
this county, yes.
Now, my follow-up question would be, why is it so confusing?
What is confusing? What do you mean? Why do we have both? What? Future land use and zoning?
So I'd like to take a stab at that real quick.
Please.
So for zoning is the current active use of what's permitted for that specific property. I'm not sure exactly, Stephen, I know you could probably jump in and say when the zoning, when did that go into effect, zoning?
It was
The term?
2017, 2018 timeframe is when the county adopted their official zoning.
So Stephen said the county adopted their official zoning map at 2017 and 2018, around that time frame. And then the future land use, that's planning for growth. So that's more in line, I'd say, with the comp plan versus the current land development code. So the current land development code relates to zoning. So that's where the terms are individually defined as to what should or should not go in that area. Normally, residential districts have more community-focused planning efforts, such as allowing, what are some different examples of residential districts and neighboring permitted uses?
So, like, we have our more restrictive residential preservation. We have neighborhood infill. We have,
And that's to make sure that basically if somebody's going to build in a residential area, that they're going to maintain that it's a residential area or a conserved area, not a large industrial site, correct?
correct.
Okay, so that's another thing is when planning for growth, looking towards the future of where Walton County will be by, let's say, 2040. That's when the future land use really goes into effect. So it needs to align with the zoning and future land use in order to build on that specific property. So the reason why both work together is one is current and active, what it's currently designated as, and one is planning for the future.
Well, and two, so the state requires the county to have a comprehensive plan. And as I've mentioned, one of the components of that comprehensive plan is a map, the future land use map. And for the longest time, the county had that map. I think it was 1996. Yeah, November 7th, 1996, our magic plot of record date. That's when that was adopted. So you've got your future land use map. And then there was the land development code that implemented the requirements of the comp plan, but we didn't have the accompanying zoning map. So then, like I said, 17, 18 timeframe, the county adopted the zoning map. And so, and I don't have it in front of me.
And that's
but-
based on state requirements, is the county must have a comp plan in place, which includes the future land use designations for appropriate growth.
Right.
Yep.
Can we go on to something else?
Yes.
Okay. You raised the question about concerns and conflicts. I have a concern about the way the land use is changed, or the way the land use is allocated, I guess is the right word. Let me give you an example. Can you hear me okay with this? I'm sorry. If you had 100-acre parcel and it was zoned for, I can't recall, the residential with two-acre lots, or it was in the land use category, not to confuse zoning and land use, and 90% of your land is wetlands. So you have 10 buildable acres out of 100. And it's zoned for 2-acre lots. But the county allows you, or the land use code or something allows you to put 20 homes on that 10 acres because you measure your 2-acre parcels over 100 acres of land, 90 of which is not buildable. To me, that is insane.
Well, that one sounds like a very unique case.
Did you say unique?
Yes, unique. No, so
I'd say not.
Hang on,
well,
hang on just a
it does
second. Hang on
sound.
just a second. Years ago, before this, what we do is, what happened before I got on the board, people would take that 100 acres of land and say 90% or 50%, whatever it was wetlands. They could go get a Corps of Engineer permit and cover up those wetlands. So what the county did, right or wrong, to stop that, they said you could move the density out of the wetlands to the uplands. And what that did was stop people from covering up the wetlands. Because when the Corps gave the permit, there wasn't anything we could do about it back then. So it was a move to save the wetlands. Now, I don't know how you can put that many houses, 50 houses on 10 acres. I agree with that.
Well,
But-
you can do it. I mean, you have
Yeah.
half-acre lots instead of
But
2-acre lots.
The fact of the matter is, it was done to save the wetlands, not to destroy the wetlands, and they were giving those permits out left and right at that time.
And to add to that, we still will. To some
They still
degree.
do it.
But here's the thing, is that the county also implemented, I use the word penalty for lack of a better word. So if you're doing a residential development and you get that permit through the Corps DEP, then we're going to say that area of wetlands that you're impacting, your density, instead of, you said two per acre, is that what you said?
I was just saying 2 acres per lot.
So instead of it being, let's just say 2 acres or 2 lots per acre, it drops that area of impact down to 1 unit per 20 acres. So it's a huge penalty for doing that. So we're like, okay, let's protect the wetlands.
I'm sorry, 1 unit per 20 acres?
1 per 20.
On
for the
all
area of
impacted areas.
impact.
Well, that makes no sense to me either. Why not just stick with 5 houses on the 10 acres? So you've got 2-acre lots.
Because
You have 10 acres that's buildable. If you divide 10 by 2, you get 5. So why?
Because they can get that permit through the state or the federal government to fill those wetlands, and we can't do anything about it. So, but what we can do is we can say, you can still do that, but we're going to penalize you for it.
Doesn't DEP have some say in that?
They mitigate it.
I mean, Corps of Engineers has got control over navigable waterways, but I don't know
Well,
that.
there are some Army Corps wetlands. There are some.
Bob, if you have a particular parcel as well, we'd love to connect after and talk through the particular
I'm sorry,
parcel.
if I have a what?
Particular parcel in mind?
I do not. I
Well,
just,
that
I just
might-
watch
yeah.
approvals go on in the BCC for permitting in densities that are wildly different than what the area is zoned for.
I
So
think
they
that-
get waivers all the
if I
time
could
in the
just,
codes, and they shouldn't be getting waivers so easily, I think.
It-
That's my problem.
Well,
That's what I see the
here's the-
conflict and the concern.
Here's the truth of the matter. Clustering results in less wetland impact, period. It does. And that's the reason it was implemented. That's why we still have it today.
Why, if you didn't allow clustering,
We would be taking people's rights. If a site is
Why?
entitled to 20 units,
if there's zone.
despite of wetland impacts, because the Army Corps, the FDEP is going to give them permits. More than likely, they will get permits to impact those wetlands. So we allow for clustering to avoid those impacts, and then we also apply a density reduction for every impacted acre. So Right, so any DEP, any impact permit, not any, but the majority of them result in mitigation efforts elsewhere. Unfortunately, I understand most of the community wish we had more mitigation banks in the south end, but we don't.
Well, then, if you know what percentage is wetlands, why don't you just zone it for what you're going to allow them to build on?
So wetlands change. So if we went around and we're able to map all the wetlands and said you have to stay out of all this area. We deal with it every day. There's platted subdivisions that have wetlands platted. Wetlands change. Folks come in here every day with new surveys, new delineations that show these wetlands have changed. So we wouldn't be able to do that. We wouldn't say these are wetlands forever. You can never build here.
Why don't you come up with something like we have with the what do we call it? The erosion control line now instead of the mean high water line. Why don't you just fix it as of a date? I mean, it changes
So
with season.
Yeah,
In
so that's
wetlands,
a good
the water
idea,
dries up,
right?
the rains come,
Yeah.
floods.
So that's
so why don't you
what
just
we're
fix
after
that
today,
too?
right? That's a good idea that lends itself to this conversation. That's not a terrible idea looking at wetlands in that perspective or from that perspective, right? So, thank you.
Because I would think it's much more desirable to,
Yeah, absolutely.
well, I mean, it just seems much more desirable to keep the density at what it was originally intended to be. To
That's
kinda
what we do
suppress
by
the
allowing.
the overcrowding that you're getting in the south, where we don't have roads that are adequate, especially along 30A, that are adequate for the traffic.
But we're not changing the density, right? By allowing the clustering, the density doesn't change. Those are entitled units to that site. So we're not saying you get more density here. We're just allowing them to
Change the number
build
of
smaller
people
units
occupying the
on smaller
land,
property.
though.
I'm sorry?
You change the number of people occupying the land,
By clustering?
yes.
How do you suspect? How do you figure that?
If you change the density on the buildable land,
We're not changing the density. That's what I'm saying.
sure you are. On the buildable land, you certainly are.
So,
Because
but
only
if we didn't allow
because-
for clustering, that buildable land or that unbuildable land would become buildable by the developer. They would get impact permits to make more of
Why
that
don't you-
land
Why don't you
buildable.
work on making it unbuildable?
Well,
I mean, the whole thing- the whole idea is to protect the wetlands.
We do have some reductions. So if you're suggesting that we increase that density reduction, that's again a valuable statement, right? That's where, this is what we expect, right? So
You mean increase the size that you can, instead of saying you can put 20 lots on the 10 acres that's buildable, put 10 acres?
no, so
Or, excuse me, 10 lots?
Well, no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying if one of your statements now, in terms of contributing to this conversation, is saying, hey, let's take that density reduction that we apply to wetland impacts from 1 unit to 20 acres to 1 to 40 acres or something. If that's what you're saying, that's a contribution to this conversation, and I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Say that again. I missed the 1 to 20, 1 to 40.
I guess I'm ultimately trying to get to a place where we can have a constructive conversation where you're suggesting things that are a reasonable thing to suggest as part of this entire process, right? So if you're worried about additional wetland impacts, or if you're worried about clustering, then there's ways that we can address that in the comp plan, the land development code, right? So one of those could potentially be an increased reduction in density in impacted wetlands. We could also look at other things, but what I don't think we should be talking about at all is reducing entitlements. That's why I hope we're not
Well,
going that way.
I think what I guess my fundamental problem is you're making an assumption when you start out that all land can be treated identically.
I don't think we are assuming that, Bob. I don't think we are.
Bob, I think what you're trying
Well,
to say
it
is,
seems-
and I would like to ask,
I think you are, but that,
no.
it's not, and that's not true. So you're making
No,
it-
you're
your
right.
whole-
I agree with that 100%.
Your whole thing is premised on a false entry point to the whole rationale behind your coding and building and.
so Bob, would, just like for our thoughts and feedback that we're getting from you, so what you're saying is less development and more conservation, yes? like in a brief summary, like a few words. Is that where you're going, Bob? I want to make sure that we at least like capture it appropriately to take back and look at.
I guess what I'm saying is if somebody on an adjacent parcel that could build 2-acre lots, build on, and it was all buildable.
Yeah.
And they put a development in there, they could put 20 homes, 20 times, what's the right number? Anyway, they could on a 100-acre parcel, they could put 50 homes, right?
100-acre parcel, they could put
2-acre lots.
Okay, 2-acre lots. Yep.
Okay. And somebody else comes in on the lot right next door and puts 20 homes on 10 acres. So the homes are much smaller. The value of the homes are much less.
The homes are
nature of the
smaller, value's
neighborhood
less.
is completely
Minimum lot
changed. The nature
Okay.
of the neighborhood is completely changed. And I don't see, if it's originally zoned when they bought it for 2-acre lots,
Yeah.
both parcels, the people knew one had wetlands on it.
Mm-hmm.
Wetlands are not supposed to be buildable, there's a conservation area.
Okay. Wetlands are
Yeah,
not to
so-
be buildable conservation
so
area.
what you're doing is you're changing the whole nature of what was intended by zoning 2-acre lots on the parcels to begin with.
Okay. So this is
So
taking back.
that's what worries me and concerns me.
That's
It's
yeah.
not a question of protecting the wetlands or not protecting the wetlands.
It's
just
the
changing
buildable
the
area.
nature-
Yep.
It's just changing the whole nature of the area from what it was intentionally designed for or zoned for to something that it's not.
So taking the minimum lot
That's what I
area,
think he's talking
yes,
about, and
the
because
density.
We don't have we don't have,
So
some places that I've worked in, it's like the minimum lot size is 10,000 square feet, you know, and,
Yeah.
and you have to have a certain width and a certain
Quarter of an
length
acre,
and that
roughly.
sort of
Quarter of an
thing.
acre,
Yep.
roughly.
And for whatever reason, Walton chose not to go that way. Now that's, I don't know from an entitlement standpoint if we can implement that at this
that might
point,
be something
but-
we can
But it's
look
something
at.
that's definitely worth conversation because you're not the first. Once I finally realized what it was you were saying, and I apologize it took you so long.
No, I apologize for not
Once,
making it clear.
once I picked up on it, I'm like, okay, so I have had other people concerned that we don't have a minimum lot size. There's pros and
Well,
cons.
the minimum
you know.
lot size could also be clear for everyone, like as in the applicant who's applying and what they're supposed to build. So that could be something we could take back and discuss
I
a
think
bit
it's
more.
definitely a topic of conversation
Okay.
that we need to have.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean,
100%.
That sounds great.
The whole problem and the reason that people are confused is because when you say this area is zoned for 2-acre lots, and then all of a sudden you get half-acre, or you get quarter-acre lots or half-acre lots. Oh, okay. Yes, anyway. I've said a lot.
You're done.
I'm willing to belabor, other people have things to say.
But no, good conversation. Thank you, Bob. Yes, sir.
The conclusion of that conversation is the minimum lot. To
That's what I
discuss that.
think,
Yep.
yes.
Okay. We'll definitely take a look at that. And
And
Zoning defines the size of the lot. The zoning defines the size of the lot. And once it's defined, that's what it ought to be. You shouldn't be able to change a parcel to change the lot size on any element of the parcel. Period.
so, just from a process or from a schedule standpoint, Sabrina, I have a question. Did we want to go ahead and let this be our open question session? Yeah. Okay. Great. You see who's the
Well,
boss.
get out of here. I just listen to Kelly and Steven. But we'll keep this thing going. You know, Bob had some interesting points. And if you'd like to say your name as well so we can.
John King.
John, thank you.
Thanks. Just not to keep hashing over this, but the minimum lot size in Okaloosa County, I think, is 6,000 square feet. Bay County, I want to say 5,000 square feet. When you're at about the 6,000 square feet and have a minimum lot size, it keeps the developers out of the wetlands. Why do they go in it? Costs you $200,000 of credit to go into.
Sorry, can you
Well-
say that a little bit closer? Yeah.
Yeah, so there's no reason to eat into wetlands because it's too expensive to do it. So if you got a minimum lot size, it remedies your drainage, it remedies your parking. Example, a 6,000 square foot lot gets you a 2,000 square foot single family home on it with enough parking that they're not parking on the streets, and it takes care of your stormwater on your individual lot or a common stormwater pond. It remedies, I mean, City of Destin, they've 7,500 square foot minimum lot size. Well, you don't have those problems, Jim. Yeah, man. I mean but that's
Wait,
a part,
sorry.
big part.
You said
So,
it except
anyway,
for.
that's all I got. Thank you.
No, thank you for that. And,
And-
you know,
and
as
it-
Mr. King, Sabrina, Mr. King is a developer, so to hear that from a developer means, you know, it means a lot to hear that you're open to a minimum lot size. So thank you. Okay. Where are we?
Actually, real quick on the minimum lot size that you mentioned, John. So that would be clearer for you as well as an applicant towards the county. It would be helpful to know.
Not to go on and on, but if you have a minimum lot size, and let's say it's 6,000 square feet, and we're trying to provide housing for my generation and Camilo's generation, all right, or Dan's. The sweet spot for the developer, for the builder, is about 2,200 square feet. If you build 1,800 square feet, you have a kitchen, you have a garage, you have the lot clearing, you have the lot purchase. You have fixed costs that spread out over 1,800 square feet. Everybody understands, right?
Okay.
And let's say that costs you $100 a square foot. I wish. But I remember those days but $100 a square foot spread out over 1,800 square feet, the next 400 square feet is half of that in cost. So it doesn't cost all that much more to provide that single story that my generation wants and Camilo's generation wants, 2,400 square feet, that doesn't, again, cause you drainage problems, parking problems, or destroy wetlands. So at any rate, I think everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, John.
Commissioner Curry. I didn't get the pleasure of having this conversation at my roundtable, so I heard the the wetlands discussion come up. I would like to dive into more of this, mitigation banks and everything. To me, I'm looking at, if we're filling in wetlands at one area, when we do, whenever that case may be, I just find it hard to believe that it's okay to do that because we bought some mitigation banks up in the mountains of North Florida. We're still filling in the wetlands in the south end. So, I mean, I'm not for or against development. I just want to understand that concept. Who made it? And these are private entities that we're paying. Correct me if I'm wrong, but, so we're filling in wetlands, paying a private person in the north to make it okay to do so. I mean, I just make it make sense, I guess. I don't know.
I would like to jump in real quick on that one. You can keep the mic for a second. We're gonna have a conversation. I think that that's actually a great point because wetland mitigation is one of, I'd say, from SwiftGov's perspective, we work with cities and counties across the state of Florida, 60,000 in population to 1.65 million. And when I say across the state of Florida, we love being here in Walton County. I mean, I know most of y'all have seen me at the BOCC. We've seen each other in person. We do everything we can to be boots in the ground with our communities to get to know them more and their needs. So obviously when going through and looking at these differences, that's the one topic that every city and county across the state has been requesting need for clarification. So that might even be a question with the state level as well. And maybe what we could do is as fun as these conversations are, like we could maybe do a session with somebody from the state to discuss, DEP, their needs for wetland mitigation credits and what that means, especially since it's their language. And then as a county and what we can do better with discussing that with our residents, because obviously Walton County has some of the most environmentally sensitive areas that we've seen. And I think that's actually, staff's going to kick me, but maybe we could do like another workshop to like discuss it as well. Yes. Awesome. Kelly says yes. All right. Well, would that be helpful? Do you think the residents would appreciate that too? Yes.
Yeah, I mean, because I hear it all the time. I drive around this county all the time, and I see where people are filling in their wetlands to make more driveways. You just go down 20, there's 2 residential homes that all of a sudden now have 6-7 car parking when it used to be a swamp. So I think the issues are there, and my only problem is trying to understand, if we're trying to protect wetlands, why would we fill them in and make it say it's okay because we purchased some land in North Florida and then we're paying a private person to maintain that preservation? Okay, it has nothing to do with the south end. I mean, we just filled in a wetland that we are supposedly supposed to be pride preservation and conservation. And to me, it doesn't look like that's happening. That's just my point.
I think to that point as well, like understanding how we can better serve both communities, because obviously we're in South Walton today. Earlier this week we were over in North Walton, but we need to figure out that bridging of that gap and how we can serve everyone better together. So thank you for bringing that up and supporting that discussion. Oh,
thank you. No.
Well, good thing I'm standing in the middle.
No, I appreciate you, Commissioner, for being here also.
And your name.
I mean, it's not, like, it means, and you always provide great input. And I think that this is a very good event. So Camilo Giraldo, just given some additional perspective on that. So I believe if we all spend more time digging into the penalty that the county created, so I believe Walton County has actually one of the most restrictive rules in place already when it comes to developing, and that's what makes this county beautiful. I mean, we got a 50-foot height restriction. We have a 90% penalty on wetlands. So in other cities, you got free range. Whatever the federal government allows you to mitigate, you're able to do it. Here in Walton County, it's almost impossible economically to develop on wetlands, because if you get your density penalized 90% when you have a 50-foot height restriction. So let's say we're in Miami and you have a property that's got, I don't know, I'm going to do a super high number, 100 units an acre, and you got 2 acres. Well, you can impact half an acre and you can go vertical and build a 10-story building. But in Walton County, because you have that 50-foot height restriction, it almost makes it impossible. So I would like everyone to focus on that, because it will give a lot of people a lot of comfort. I think we naturally hear wetlands, it can be impacted, and we naturally think, oh my God, the land is going to be destroyed. If you look at, study all the developments that have wetlands that have been developed, there's a lot of not like physical mitigate, but not touching wetlands that occurred because of that restriction. And I think that takes primarily, of it. So I will just encourage everyone to study that 90% restriction, because it's already pretty harsh and it already protects the land very well. And to echo Mr. Bob's concern that he would like to have a rule that's similar to the mean high water line, that 90% rule already takes care of it. If more wetlands occur over time, that percentage is going to stay with those wetlands. So
I have nothing to add to that. That's great. Thank you. Thank you for your feedback. I know I saw. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I know we have, sorry, Bob, before we get back to you, I saw a hand over here earlier, and I said I was going to go.
Oh, I think you touched on it. I was just going to say about the minimum lot size. I think that's a great idea, increasing the penalty. And, prior to 1996, wetlands weren't considered in density. So I think that is maybe where Bob was coming from with a lot of those comments. But I think that with the density and the different zoning categories do have different densities. So it was covered. Thank you.
Okay, maybe I misunderstand minimum lot size, but I think minimum lot size is fine in particularly zoned areas, but not uniform minimum lot size across the whole county. That's what I'm concerned about. If you declare a minimum lot size, then that would mean across the whole county, that would mean to me that on any parcel, you could drop down to that minimum lot size if you wanted to.
And so for the minimum lot size, you're saying each zoning district should have an
Yes,
appropriate.
you've got a 2-acre lot size in some districts, then it ought to stay that way.
Okay.
And
Yep.
other areas are half acre, or quarter acre, or 6,000 feet, I guess, was the smallest that was mentioned. That's fine, but it shouldn't be uniform across the county. That was what worried me, the way it was, at least the way I interpret it being presented.
Thanks, Bob.
I agree with that, but instead of it running with the zoning category, perhaps it should run with the floodplain. Because the zoning categories are different. You can have VMU with a tremendous amount of wetlands, and then you can have conservation residential or residential preservation with no wetlands, and it's zoned X, right? So it's a floodplain that we're really wanting to protect. So perhaps that's what it should run with. That's just my thought.
Did I stir that discussion? Wow.
Kelly was just.
No, we appreciate your comments.
Yeah.
I'm being silly.
And,
So-
wait.
What do you mean? It's For example, if something is in the LIMWA, Limited Wave Action Zone, or if something has a tremendous amount of wetlands and is in an AE, there's insurance. You're going to be paying more insurance for those properties. So you want to build up, of course, but you also don't want to build as much density. You don't want a whole lot of density in an area that is more flood prone, because insurance companies are going to be paying out claims. It seems like FEMA would have more an active role in that.
Creates more flood capacity than current existing conditions. So wouldn't the encouragement be to actually create additional stormwater capacity for the community via what the property allows? If you're not impacting wetlands and you don't have protected vegetation and species.
I think it's on a case-by-case basis, and I kind of have a feeling you're talking about an issue that we have right now. So I think you and I agree to disagree, and I don't think that we should be increasing density in floodplains.
But we're not
particularly
increasing density. No, and this is a beautiful conversation, because we as a community, all of us are neighbors, our commissioners, you, everyone sitting here. But if you're not changing, if you're not asking for a rezoning, and a property has a certain development right, and you're not impacting wetlands, what is wrong with being able to have, and you don't have protected vegetation and species, what is the issue on actually using a stormwater to create additional stormwater capacity for that very own concern that you have as far as the flood?
Well, I might actually jump in on that point. I think there's a lot of excitement in here and ideas, and what I'd like to do is another survey so we can relay those ideas via TV so everyone can participate online as well. I did just get a few notes that we needed to move on to the next section. I'll be right around to collect the mics, but actually, Denise, do you mind grabbing them real quick? So what we're going to do, and if you don't mind, you do have a time slot that we need to make sure we cover as much as possible, including GIS, but
Yeah, the reason why this topic is so critical is because currently there's a magistrate making a decision, and I believe that there's a lot of information that has been left out.
Did you say magistrate?
Yes.
Well, with that.
So,
We'll hand over the mic to the magistrate,
Yeah.
and we'll let them proceed appropriately and continue that dialogue there, just so we can get enough participation for the surveys. And
yeah, but if I may, just like Mr. Bob spoke for about
Yes.
10 minutes, I would like to maybe speak for another 30 seconds.
Yeah,
My,
no
my
problem.
point being is this is such an important and critical item that I believe not everyone is fully wrapping their head around and putting their eyes on it, that a lot of unfair decisions could be made affecting hundreds of property owners. So
Yeah.
I do believe that the topic in its own deserves the attention of everyone and the collaboration between the public and everybody else. So I
And-
don't know if anybody else would like to add anything.
I appreciate that, and I think what we'll do is we'll do our best. If we do participate enough in the survey, we should have around 15 minutes towards the end, and I know we'll also be sticking around after the session. The past few sessions, we have been able to stick around quite a while until the last person left. So, we'll definitely, if you'd like, we can pass you the mic first when we do get back to that Q&A, if that's okay, if you don't mind. Okay, thank you. So thank you both for your comments, and we'll go ahead and dive into the survey. So right now we have 3 participants. There's a bit more people. Thank you for participating. I see the phones coming out, and I know they will come out, but if they don't, it's fine. What is your primary relationship to land use and development in Walton County? All right. Some of you are full-time residents. Some of you are developers. Some of you are builders or contractors. How long have you lived, worked, or owned property in Walton County? So far, I believe our record's 1850. That was from, I don't remember which, it was definitely in the north end, but it was great getting their perspectives as well on some of the history of Walton County. Apparently, he has a bit of a museum there as well. All right. So, what is one thing you hope to learn from today's section? All right. How the LDC works and is decided. Will property rights be protected? That's a great one. Updates coming to the future process to include AI. All right. I will say, that's definitely, we are excited to walk you through that. What commission district do you live in, work in, own property in, or mostly closely identify with? All right. And today we are in District 5, Commissioner Anderson. Again, we're really appreciative that him and BOCC administration's direction into bringing all of us together so we can have these discussions. It's been really insightful for us to take some of these thoughts and feedback back so that way we can start addressing some of these issues within the Land Development Code rewrite. This is our first step in starting to interact with the community on the Land Development Code rewrite, and first of many. They are normally a process because we do try to get as much participation as we can. How familiar are you with Walton County's Land Development Code, Code of Ordinances, or Muni Code? What portions of the Land Development Code or development process do you engage most with? What are areas of the code or development processes that are unclear, difficult to interpret, or overly burdensome? Conservation requirements. Okay, well, all right. I'm assuming based on today's dialogue, that's based on unclear, difficult to interpret. Which parts of the current land development code or development process do you feel are working well? The planning department seems to truly care about what is best for Walton County. Transparency. Those are some nice comments. Whoever you are, that's really thoughtful. Good for you guys. Okay, that's good. Have you experienced delays, confusions, or challenges due to unclear or outdated requirements? Confusion, expiration for development orders, when do they expire? That's a great question. Actually, could we answer that one during this session? When do development orders expire, Kelly or Donnies?
It's kind of complicated. No, so a development order, once it's signed by our director, it's valid for 1 year. There is an opportunity for a development order to be extended one time for 1 year under the Land Development Code. Unless they go to the Board of County Commissioners, there's additional opportunities. Where it gets complicated is that the state of Florida preempts us to some degree from, and maybe preempt it in the right word, but there's an additional allowance based on a statute, and I can't remember the number of the statute, but if there is an emergency declaration issued, meaning the governor signs an executive order and it includes our county, then we are basically obligated to extend development orders. And I could get really deep into this subject because I do those, but it's that's kind of it in a nutshell. And you know, if anybody has questions about that, I'm happy to talk offline because I'm sure that's not something that everybody's interested in. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kelly. All right. If yes, what types of delays or challenges have you experienced? Before today's session, how familiar are you with the following topics? Looks like we have some people very familiar, so that's great. And how familiar are you with the following topics? I am going through these a bit quicker, just because I want to make sure we do have enough time towards the end, as I mentioned earlier, for further discussion. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass the mic to Donnies Ray, and she's going to continue walking you through the current building permit review workflow, what staff is currently doing and how they're proceeding, and passing it along from the applicant to the building permit manager and intake reviewer and plan reviewer.
Thank you. I'll go over the BPR process that we currently have briefly because we need discussions going on. Thank you, commissioners, for supporting planning department and supporting us with our SwiftGov partners for the AI review. So when an application is made, the applicant formulates all of their documents, required documents, and the information that they need to fill out in the computer. They will gather that together, upload to the portal. Our InterGov system is our planning portal that we use. We talk about SwiftGov. SwiftGov is our internal tool that we are using to standardize our SOPs for reviews for building permits and take that checklist that has those references back to the Land Development Code for each item that is a correction or clarification that we need to get your BPR approved and out the door. So when we have the applicant submit a package, it comes in through queue, and in the queue there are two of us that review for completeness, make sure that these are appropriate, the type of permit is appropriate. Then we go through an assignment process. When we assign it, it goes to, usually I have 2 reviewers in each area so that it's covered, and those persons who are doing that particular area will be an expert in that area, so that there is not a learning curve to go back and research all of the issues that are with that subdivision or with that general area. We have neighborhood plans, we have plan unit developments, DRIs, and we have to look at those. And I would rather we have folks who are very familiar with that to look at those issues rather than someone new, and it complicates and delays things. So that's how we operate with the assignments. So in there for the completeness review, we went over the county forms earlier. There are detailed plans that we have to have. I have to have a site plan, a floor plan, elevation plan, roof plan, and foundation plan. Those are critical to what we do for reviews. Also, you will have forms such as the wildlife lighting, beach mouse, wetland delineation report as if you're impacting on that particular property. We look at all those, including an ARB meter. On the site plans, there are some things that are very important for us to have. Graphic scale. It's got to be drawn to scale. It's got to have a legal description. We've got to know what property we're looking at, street names on there, north arrows, all of those that identify the property itself. When we do go in and look at those, the first thing we do is look at it for lot of record status. If you're not a lot of record or you don't have a legal status in that lot, we can't permit it. If you have structures that don't meet the setbacks that never received permits before, we have to look at that as well. We look at the zoning district to make sure that you are appropriate, that you're not putting too many houses on a piece of property that it's not zoned and doesn't have the density for it. We're looking at definitely the property dimensions as it relates to the ownership form that you give us, a copy of the warranty deed or quitclaim deed, whatever your ownership document is. We make sure that that legal description matches and it's the dimensions that you've given us on the site. We also have impervious surface ratio. You've heard us talk about stormwater several times. You have several different options to deal with stormwater. You have a master stormwater plan, which your community already has gone through that system, and every lot has its particular drainage or impact size, and your stormwater engineer will sign off on that form saying you're in compliance with that calculations that were based on that subdivision. If you're in a area that is an older subdivision, doesn't have a master stormwater plan, or it's a meets and bounds description, you may possibly have to provide an on-site stormwater system to capture what you're impacting on that lot. We also have a program called the 3 BMPs, the Best Management Practices, which is an exception to the stormwater rule, which limits you to the impact 40 or 45% on the lot. You have to use a pier or pile supported foundation, backfilled stem wall foundation, no fill dirt on property, and you're limited basically for all ISR, which is the house, the driveway, sheds, any of those structures that go on there. So those ISR calculations are a must as well. On the building details themselves, you have to have the finished floor elevation. So you're either going to meet, if you're in a flood zone, you have to meet the finished floor according to the land development code that says 1 foot freeboard. So FEMA has documents that give us a base flood elevation, and then the county has adopted language that gives you a design flood elevation. So that's a 1 foot freeboard. So we have to ensure that that structure is going to meet that for the living space of that house. Building heights are calculated. There's a methodology in Chapter 5, and we have to apply that. We look at what the footprint is underneath that house. And do you have a single ridge line on the roof? Do you have multiple roof lines? You have different levels. You have a mezzanine, but it has a roof line, and then the main roof of the house. So we have to use that methodology to make sure that you're in compliance with the height. Land Development Code has a 50-foot height in most areas, but you also have neighborhood plans that may have a 40-foot height. Roof overhangs. This is one of the items that is particularly important for any subdivision that has a preservation area. Preservation areas are normally recorded on the plats. Code allows you to have an 18-inch overhang, but if you're in a preservation area, you're not allowed to have any impact into that preservation area. So those are some of the items in our details that we have to review. Setbacks. Those are all important. Typically, you have a 20-foot setback, 4.5 side, 15 rear. We have to ensure that all structures, AC equipment, all of that is in that setback. Parking spaces is another item. Parking is very important. Everyone cringes whenever we talk about parking. We have larger houses that come in, and they're required one space per 900 square foot, and we have to allow for where it's going to be on that site, along with the stormwater, landscape buffers, all of those. So we commonly refer to it. They laugh at me and say, "Oh, you're going to say it." I said, "Yep. You can't do a Tokyo drift to get into a parking space. You have to show us maneuverability to get into that parking space. We're not going to stack them end to end to end." The other issue that's prevalent here in the South End is wetlands, coastal dune protection, wildlife lighting, scenic corridor buffers, and coastal dune construction. Gulfront lots with a CCCL lot. So we have to look at that all on the site plan for the house. Most common mistakes that require resubmit stormwater. Parking spaces, the ISR ratio if they're doing a 3 BMP for the exception. And that comes into play most of the time when you have a house and the house is there. Now you want to put in a pool or you want to put in an attached garage. That's adding ISR to that site, so you have to accommodate for that.
finished floor elevations are not on there, and most people don't understand. That's why we talked about the FFE exception, or you meet the 1-foot freeboard with FEMA. Setbacks are not dimensions. They draw it on there, but they don't put it what it is. And then the legal descriptions simply don't match, because it's been a lot that's been cut, split, or changed. And we have to go back and remedy that before we can get the PPR approved. Anybody have any? I know that was very quick. Does anybody have any questions on that? Thank you. Sorry. Yes, sir. She's bringing you a microphone. My name is Donnice. I am the VPR manager.
Thank you. Oh, well done.
Thank
I didn't
you.
know who you were, so thank you.
Sorry.
And that was Donnice Way, the building permit review manager for Walton County. She does single-family homes, accessory structures, townhomes. She has a whole review department that's been really putting together this information, so that way, technically, we want to reduce resubmittals. You know, if an applicant is applying appropriately, if you have all of these things listed, you should get approved if you're following the rules, if you're paying attention to wildlife lighting, and also the aesthetic appeal for the scenic corridor. That is something that you should be approved. But also, if you're not following those rules, you will not get approved. So the county is going to do everything they can to try to support applicants with better checklists, because a lot of the times when SwiftGov goes into a community, there are a lot of resubmittals. I know that's the case right now in Walton County, just because there have been, you know, processes in place for years, which we understand and respect. But if we can make things a bit more clear for the applicant or person applying for a permit, we really want to. So most of our communities average around 87% of the first submission will get approved by the applicant, which is huge, as long as they know the requirements. So this is why we're doing these sessions as well, is to get you introduced to the requirements specifically for the building permit review process with Walton County. With that, what I'm going to do briefly, you know, I said we'd have some time after to do a little more interaction, and we have first dibs on the mic over in the rear right of the room. So, you know, what we'll do is we're going to do a brief GIS demonstration. This is something, so GIS is ran by, I believe, the GIS department for Walton County, which is a different department than development services, but the two go hand in hand. There's a lot of resources that your GIS department has put together. On the left-hand side, you have a zoom in, which is the plus button, or a zoom out, which is the minus button. So what we're going to do is we're just going to zoom in a little bit here, so that way we can start messing with our map and making something a little unique for today's session. So as I'm zooming in, you'll notice that I'm hovering over the South Walton Annex. The reason being is we're going to go ahead and change our base map. The base map is the 4 squares at the top right corner. We'll click that base map gallery. As soon as I click that button, you'll see a whole bunch of different types of base maps appear. There's a colored pencil map, which you'll see is going to change the satellite imagery to a colored pencil map. You could also use a human geography map. If I click here, it'll turn it into a grayscale. If we wanted to click an open street blueprint map, this one's kind of cool. This one is a actual blueprint, and it shows roadways and boundaries and parcels. So this one's pretty interesting. What we'll do for today's session is just go back to a satellite imagery map. As soon as I click that, you'll see it change. And there is sometimes a delay, so the map will take a few seconds to sometimes process, but it will change. This is off of Esri. Walton County is using Esri services for base maps and also creation of these awesome GIS maps, geographic information systems. What we'll do is we're going to click the right of the base map. This is going to be the legend. So for the legend, you'll see right now on our map, we have some hashes that are coming down diagonal on the left-hand side of the map. And those hashes, they have to have some type of meaning. To understand what their meaning is, we have a legend. The legend will show you specifically, you'll see that there are some hashes. Since there's a few different options, what you can always do is click on that hash to find out what it means. Right now, once I click it, you'll see a pop-up occur. The pop-up will say 1 of 3. Since it says 1 of 3, it will only show you things within your map, if it is applicable, to that specific parcel. So as soon as I go through and click the next feature, it'll show me more information. So now you'll see that this is highlighted with a bright turquoise bluish color, and it says that this is a wetland, freshwater forested shrub wetland area. So what that means is it's in a wetland. We talked a lot about wetlands today. Now this is just an estimate. This is not a signed and sealed survey, so this is not the final answer. In order for it to be an actual designated wetland, it does have to show it by a signed and sealed engineer, licensed engineer, and that's really what will determine the wetland area. But this is to be utilized as a tool. It is coming from the Florida Geographic Data Library, which has some of the most up-to-date wetland maps that are publicly available for people to utilize as a tool. So with that, we'll click to the right one more time and see what the last one is. This is a special flood hazard area A. It'll show you, you'll see additional information that's titling what else is within this specific layer. The layer is going to be the special flood hazard areas. So sometimes each layer has unique individual definitions, such as letting you know when this was published. So this one is from flood map from FEMA from December 30th of 2020. So if we go to the right-hand side, you'll see a layer list. The layer list will populate on the map in the order it's in. So whatever's at the top is going to come up to the top of the map. Whatever's at the bottom will be listed at the bottom of the map. Kind of how you layer images in a Word document. You can pull things forward, send them back. So right now we have address points listed at the top. We have some major roads. So if it's a interstate, U.S. highway, state road, county road, for streets, it gets a little bit more detailed. Here you have the county road and also local roads. So what we'll do is we're just going to click this red line just to show you guys a little overview. You'll notice the first layer, since the special flood hazard areas are at the top of the map, that will populate first. And for the second one, you will notice that this says U.S. Highway 331S South. So what that means is it is maintained by the state. So some of the fields within this pop-up, you'll notice that there is one that says maintained by, and then it says the association which it's maintained by, which is the state. You can do the same thing with some of your local roads. Let's click the Coastal Century Boulevard right here. This is maintained by the county. So that shows you how and who is maintaining the road. So from there, what we're going to do is scroll down a little bit, just because we talked a little bit about zoning today as well. Walton County is one of the few counties in the state of Florida that does provide the incorporated areas zoning and future land use maps, which is pretty interesting. That's not everywhere. I know other counties across the state that definitely don't do that. So another props to Walton County's GIS department. So as soon as I click zoning, you will see a very aggressive color block appear. What that means is there's some information on this property. We're going to go ahead and click it, yes, because it's South Walton Annex, and we're going to identify what zoning district this is in. So as soon as I click to the right, it says zoning is institutional, which makes sense because that's obviously a county use for this specific building. So technically, that's how you can find zoning information, or if you wanted to, since we are in South Walton, I will point out a few additional interesting layers. I'm going to scroll down over here and zoom in here, yes, because we have a lot going on over here. So as I'm zooming in, and this is just a point of reference, you know, it's sometimes there might be projects that are going on that aren't actively shown all the time, but I know the Walton County team does their best to keep these maps most up to date as possible. What we'll do is we're going to go ahead and click exposure zone. You'll see a whole bunch of different colors populate here. If I click this pink parcel, we're going to go ahead and click to the right. You'll see this exposure zone is wind exposure zone D. So that's just a little bit more of the exposure zones. We'll go ahead and click the Walton County beach mouse tiers. We talked about beach mouse tiers earlier. So in order to protect those, we do need to know if you are within a Walton County beach mouse tier. This is tier 2. So that's pretty interesting. We'll go ahead, and as soon as you unclick that check mark, it will deselect and remove the population on your map. So if I reselect it, you can click the drop down, which is a left arrow, and you can see the different tiered zones. What we'll do is we're just going to unclick it, and we're going to continue scrolling down. And let's go ahead and click the coastal control line. All right, as soon as I click that coastal control line, I'm going to go ahead and click this parcel because I know this parcel will most likely have one. We see 2 of 5. What that means is we're going to keep scrolling to the right until we see the coastal control line. So right here, it does show you the coastal control line, and it was designated in 2009. All right, and with that, you do have a lot more layers that are pretty applicable down here in South Walton, such as wildlife conservation zones or the white sand protection zones and inlet beach neighborhood plan. That's also really important. You have dune lakes, you have dune lake buffers. So feel free to check out this map sometime. And if you have any thoughts or feedback, you're always welcome to let us know. And as for next steps, I'll do the final survey, and then we'll open for Q&A. We will ask that you participate in this final survey so we can gauge if you did find any of this interesting or applicable, or if not, please tell us all of your thoughts and feelings so we can do better. All right. So after today's session, did you learn anything about the following topics? If you did, awesome. If not, it's not the end of the world. We would just appreciate that you tell us what we can do better. So. All right, and thank you all for bearing with us through this presentation. It's pretty exciting times for the county, and we're trying our best to communicate with you guys as much as possible. And if you think we could do different types of workshops, more workshops, whatever you think, please let us know your thoughts. Towards the end of the survey, there will be some open-ended questions. I believe John mentioned Donnie Way killed it with discussing some of the standardized operating procedures. That's actually what she has walked you guys through. That's exactly how her staff reviews it. There's might be 1 or 2 more comments that might be unique to that site, but if it is a standard lot, that's the review process. Same thing with the document that went around earlier. If you didn't get a chance to see the document, feel free to come up here and check it out towards the end. We will be posting it online in the next few months, so that way people can go ahead and look at it. I know Bob will have some feedback for us. We hope he does, and feel free, you can send it via email, phone call. There is a planner on staff that participates, I believe very often, does sit down one-on-ones. If you don't feel like emailing, phone call, not a problem. Please come in person. We would prefer that you make an appointment, but if you don't have time, that's, please try to make an appointment. That way we can make sure there is a designated staff member. You don't have to take too much of your day to, come and wait. So we would appreciate that. How did today's session improve your understanding about the single-family home development process? If it didn't improve it at all, please feel free to let us know. If it did, great. That's awesome news. That's, again, if you're online, feel free to scan the QR code, and we would appreciate your participation. All right. On to the next one. After today's session, how confident do you feel finding information or assistance related to single-family home development in Walton County? Which topics from today's session were most helpful to you? If nothing was, you can definitely skip this one, but if it was helpful or anything was, let us know. As for staff that's here, we do have some cards that you can take home with you, so that way you know their direct connects and how you guys can get a hold of Steven. I know you guys love talking to him, and he loves talking to you, so, he's just, you can't get him to stop talking. Between me and him, it's always a competition who talks more. But feel free to grab his card as well. And Kelly, your social, beautiful butterfly that loves to talk, she'll give me a run for my money. But feel free to grab her card as well. What is one thing you learned today that'll help you in the future? This one is open-ended. We do have one that, what would you like us to change for future presentations or discussions, so that's not a problem. What is unclear? Okay, yep, approval of variances. We did not cover that and didn't plan on covering it today, so that's perfect. That's spot on. That's a bit more of a detailed conversation. I know Bob loves the details, so we'll make sure to try to do a session on that one and support the dialogue. All right. After today's session, do you feel better prepared to use Walton County's resources related to land use, development, or single-family homes? Yes, somewhat. Awesome. Love the participation. On to the next one. How would you rate today's session overall? We appreciate the good and the excellent, but if you do rate us anyway, feel free to continue. We're not going to take offense to it. We would prefer that you participate. All right. On to, do you have any suggestions for improving future sessions? If you do, we did receive the one good. So if you have more ways that we can improve our sessions to make it an excellent next time, feel free to let us know. All right. With that, thank you guys for coming in. I'm just going to reshare my screen so that way you guys have the planning department's general contact information. And for those of you here in person, feel free to grab one of the cards. And what we'll do is we'll open this for last questions and comments and thoughts. I know we had one in the back I said I would circle back to. Would you like to? All right. Awesome. Does anybody else? All right. I'm going to go to fire real quick, and then I'll come over to you, John.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for allowing us to be here. Just had a couple quick questions. I'm mainly interested in the faster plan review and the AI-powered compliance. Is that something I could see separately? I mean, I'm not understanding I have an idea of AI-powered compliance, but I'm wondering if this is just for residential homes, or is this going to go into commercial?
So right now, we are supporting
for.
with AI-powered plan review. Walton County is utilizing SwiftGov as an internal AI tool to better support them with faster permitting. So staff uses this tool to submit their permits, the permits which are submitted by applicants, to automatically review those plans in seconds. So staff, right now, that is a tool that staff is using, and it will be utilized. We're currently using it for subdivisions, townhomes, apartment complexes, single-family homes, but we will be bringing it to commercial soon. So that is something that we're currently contracted to do and are excited to help speed up projects. So because at the end of the day, most of the applicants or developers, their thoughts and feedback is, hey, we don't mind following the rules, but we need our permit. Sure. Which there's a lot of holding costs that are involved, and that's then passed along to the consumer. And if we can reduce holding costs, make housing more affordable, and support the appropriate project, that's huge. But also making sure we follow stats along the way. So is it following the rule or is it not following the rule?
Sammy, are you inquiring about the ability of AI to be utilized by the fire department in the future in terms of state fire code and building code?
Yes,
aspects?
there's already some legislature out there that requires us to turn plans around in a certain time.
Yep.
And it also allows the contractor to submit plans without even a review. So that's already coming, like
Right.
Next month. So if a developer wants it, and it's mostly tied to sprinklers, if I'm not mistaken, and alarms. If they're doing X amount of work, they don't really even need to submit plans. It's more of a field inspection. But I see this coming down the road. So an agency like us, we do have a plans examiner, but there's several that don't.
Right.
So this would go a long ways with those type of agencies. And as you know, she may not know, we're not part of the county. We're independent taxing district, but we work hand in hand with the county. We're an integral part of the review process. So anything that the county uses, it only makes sense for us to either, if we can piggyback on it, or if we have something that's comparable. So the end result is I want the customer to not have to go through extra hoops just because we're not tied to the county. If all that makes sense. And I'm sure
Yeah.
we can probably talk about this offline because this is probably more than just a 5-minute conversation, but that was really the purpose of us attending, is to get an insight on this SwiftGov thing. So.
We can actually show you something briefly after if you'd like, as long as that's okay with Stephen.
Yeah, and if I can just add, I mean, currently, the framework for SwiftGov is in the planning department, but long-term kind of vision, maybe not even that long-term, is incorporating it in other departments and county functions.
Perfect. That was the question. Thank you.
I'm next. So, we've been getting these new rule change from the state, new laws passed, that a lot of people concerned about where this is going. I know Commissioner Anderson talked about having to do with the budget and losing the ability to make decisions on a local level, and I think, my concern, we've got these rules, and I'll just point out a couple of them. I'd like your comment on, is this really what's going on throughout the state? So we had the Live Work Act passed. That's great for big developers. Okay? And not singling them, and then we got the House Bill 180, right? New rule of Stephen's got to get me out of his office plans approved in 180 days. Is that right, Stephen?
If it requires a public hearing, 180. If there's no hearing required, 120.
Yeah, and so if he does not do that, then he gives me back my review fees, and he can't collect what he normally would, which has got everybody concerned for budgetary standpoint. And then we've got a new rule that I get to go to a private engineering firm instead of going through the county process, and they've got to accept my engineer's fine, right? So it looks to me like, and I think the motivation of the state, now I want your comment, and is this happening all over, is we've got, because of the Margaret and Camillo discussion this morning about a specific issue, I think it seems like we've got all these people moving here that got here on Tuesday. They don't want anybody else here on Wednesday. And so they're in, and it's my age group, and we've got the time to be at the meetings, right? Most of them made their money someplace else, and so they don't have to worry about Camilla making a living or raising kids. So we're in this this dispute all the time. Is this going on all over the state? And is that the state's motivation for stepping in? Trying to make us work together?
As someone who doesn't work for the state, I will first start off by saying that. But as for someone who works with jurisdictions across the state, we've definitely seen the need for faster permitting and quicker review turnaround times. Right now, there's a big struggle with affordable housing. I believe at the session yesterday, someone said, "Can you define affordable housing?" I'm like, that's a great question for the AMI index and all that jazz. But, the goal for today's session is mostly to talk through these requirements, because that's kind of a first step, is taking a stab at what's currently available to applicants to get faster permitting. Because at the end of the day, we don't want to waste staff time reviewing permits that are compliant with code. And we don't want to waste the applicant's time, because this is costing you guys time and money. And right now, nobody has time, especially with how many people are moving into Florida today. So if we're able to support, we're hoping that this will speed up the process. That's what we do, SwiftGov in particular. We go into jurisdictions to make them faster, more efficient, and support the applicant. And we are the only ones that really do the community roundtable sessions as well. That's something that we take pride in. A lot of people are just like, why in the heck would you want to do those? And we're like, I've had people approach me in parking lots this close, and they're like, IAU, and I'm like, listen, I'm a person too. Like we are people and we want to get feedback. And the only way we can make appropriate change is with feedback and community dialogue. So we are seeing it across the state. It's only going to get faster, and jurisdictions like Walton County are going to lead efforts for faster permitting. That's what we do in every jurisdiction we go in, and we anticipate to do the same thing here. So
It just looks like the state is trying to take it over and move things so much faster that, and I think it's going to favor the big clear-cutting developer.
yeah.
So, at any rate, that's.
I mean, I think you have a great point, John. There's a lot going on at the state right now that's going to change some things in how local jurisdictions do approach permitting, but also from our current perspective and how we can do things better at the county level, we're going to do everything we can to make permitting faster, because at the end of the day, we do want, staff doesn't want these awesome staff members that are here in person. Right now, today was a great group. Like, I think we had good conversations. They don't always have that. Sometimes staff gets beat up pretty good. And, they're dealing with some interesting, everyone has seen it, especially, I know most of the frequent flyers here, you guys have seen BOCC meetings, but at the end of the day, these are people too, and they have families, they have homes, like they're residents of Walton County, they've lived here for years, and the reason why people work for government, it's because they care. They want to do good for their communities. It's not necessarily Donise is working at 3 a.m. Kelly's sending me emails at 1 a.m. Steven sends emails at 1, 2, 3, and 4 a.m. So it's, these people are putting their lives into better serving people, and we're trying to bridge the gap of respect as well. So I know that wasn't really applicable to the question, but I figured it was a good time to throw it in. And yes, Commissioner Curry.
Kind of piggyback on Mr. King, I mean, and Kamala, we've had discussions in my office, and you didn't bring your back up this time, Mr. King, so I'm going to go ahead and tackle you on that. You brought your wife last time, and I stood back. But this isn't a one-off, because I just got back from NACO not too long ago, and I went into some
NACO
of these,
is
the National Association of Counties. So that's everybody. United States gets in a room.
There's over 3,000 something county managers, commissioners that go to NACO every year, right?
Yep. And I made it specifically to go into some of these conferences and listen to and we are not in this boat by themselves. The states across the nation are trending this way. I stood in there with states from Colorado, California, Texas, Indiana, Minnesota, and people were in there and they're sitting on the floor because they're in disgust with this war on home rule. It's benefiting to one side or the other, which it shouldn't be. I mean, these are the type of roundtables that we need to discuss and work out our problems for ourselves. Not have somebody sitting in Tallahassee that's never stepped foot in here that's a bureaucrat from Miami telling us how to run our Walton County. And that was the persona that I got when I went to NACO, that we are not in this alone. It is going state to state. All these bills haven't even landed. So I don't even know how Stephen's going to handle this or Sabrina's going to handle this, because some of these bills are going to continue to tie our hands at everything, including you. And us as public won't be able to have any kind of input. They're wanting public hearings to be non-existent. They just want to rubber stamp everything, and I don't like that. I don't like that.
And out of curiosity, is this why BOCC? I'm not going to say forced, but is this why BOCC had us start these roundtable sessions? Because obviously this is like a 10 roundtables in a week and a half. 12, my apologies. Staff corrected me, 12. Is that why BOCC really started to push for the community engagement we're doing this week?
I think it's a necessity. I don't know why we haven't done this prior to. This shouldn't be something new. We've had these issues ever since, I think I moved here in 2010, so I've seen all of this explode, especially in Freeport. We also have annexation that is going on in Freeport, where everybody's blaming the county for all this development. Well, we don't have a say-so in the municipalities' decision-making abilities. But soon, nobody's going to have any decision-making abilities. You're probably going to have 2 more chairs up there at the dais with 2 state representatives up there. That's just my fortune teller machine going on. The way all these bills are out there, look them up, and then kind of merge them in with our roundtable and what we're looking to try and do, and we're just fighting each other. We should not be fighting each other. Mr. King's in here, Camilla's in here. We have South Walton Community Council's represented in here. These are all the people that need to shape and define what Walton County should be. Instead, a lot of times we bicker back and forth and we fight, and I love these roundtables. I hope you have more, and I hope we can kind of specifically put them down into categories and have a wetlands roundtable, or have a square footage minimum roundtable, so we can get more input and have more discussions with those particular specifics, instead of just kind of passing over them and we got a time slot. So that's my 2 cents. I guess I should shut up. This ain't my roundtable.
Commissioner Curry, your thoughts are always well received. Sometimes, no, thank you for your support and being here as well. We know that this is a South End kind of event, and hoorah! But it is good getting, I think, well-rounded perspective for the whole group.
Because Freeport has, their issues and concerns. South Walton has their issues and concerns. I'm sorry I didn't make it to North Walton's, but I wanted to come here not to talk on the mic, but to listen to the South End developers' questions, the citizens' questions, the committee's questions, just so I can get a better taste of everything countywide, instead of just focusing on my district. So,
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. With that, we are up on time, but we'll stick around for those of you that would like to. Just a few last-minute thoughts on District 5. I'm going to pass the mic to Stephen Schoen so he can say a few last-minute thoughts on development services direction to better serve you.
Okay. Thank you all for being here. We really appreciate the questions and the conversation. And I truly feel like this is, I set it up top, this is sort of that initial step forward. We wanted to sort of brag on what SwiftGov and our BPR team have done, and just to kind of give you a heads up on where we're going to go with our DOs and other review processes in the county. It is all aimed at efficiency and consistency. But in terms of the land development code, this was a really good sort of initiation into what will be a series of these things. At least I'm hopeful. I don't think Sabrina and team will be able to join us on all of them, but it would be great if you could. But understanding until you move here, anyways. And to Commissioner Curry's point, having the ability to get in front of you all and to hear your concerns and questions and comments on specific items related to the LDC and comp plan is going to be vital to us developing that document that's going to benefit everybody. That's all. Again, thank you for coming. And we're going to stick around for a bit to answer any specific questions for you. So thank you.